Welcome back, everybody. It's time to continue our Console League action. But first, if you weren't paying attention to what you may have just seen, tickets are available right now for High Res Expo. Just head on over to highresexpo.com. Make sure you snag those up November 15th through the 17th. It's going to be a good time. You should come. We hope to see you there. The end. All right, time to get back to the console scene, as I mentioned, and to do that, we've got Taco joining me now on the desk. Taco, RvL versus Dobbos Disciples was kind of the premier matchup in all of Xbox Europe last split. I imagine it's going to be the same here in Phase 2.
I can't imagine a whole lot to have changed since MSI, or at least even leading up, the events leading up to MSI. Both of these teams still definitely looking to bring it to the other. A very competitive matchup is, I think, what we can expect here. Yeah,
no changes for Dobbos Disciples or RvL since the Phase 1, so I like that Dobbos Disciples don't make any changes. I mean, they were very close to making it to the midseason invitational. A couple things didn't go their way, but clearly this team has a lot of potential. I mean, you've got Fly, you've got Vaporish Coast, you've got a chance.
And I think that with Vaporish Coast and Fly kind of leading the charge here for Dobbos Disciples, it definitely puts RvL kind of in a tight spot as well, because they know that Dobbos Disciples is very familiar with their playstyles.
Without a doubt. Let's see what they do in picks and bans. We're ready between these two purple titans of the Xbox European scene. Saw a lot of Thor in our first set since the midseason patch, and Rapio, we know, loves that pickup, but it's going to get banned right away from Rapio. I was going to say, I wonder if we'll see it, but with the extra ban in the banning phase, I think it can help you when you're particularly comfortable against your opposition.
So Dobbos Disciples concerned about the jungler choices that RvL might have, and RvL taking some shots over there in the duo lane for Vaporish Coast, not trying to allow the Hunter any sort of safe farm capability. Think that RvL's definitely looking to pack a punch early over there in duo.
I like the idea for sure. Jean Kui taken away now. We saw that played actually in the long lane a decent amount at the midseason invitational, but that's more for 50-meter Fly in the mid lane. He's always liked that selection. Dobbos Disciples do go away from the jungle with their final ban of the first banning phase with the Morrigan. And RvL, I was going to say, you cannot let Fly have Isis. He's had a good Isis his whole career, and right now might be the best Isis has ever been.
Some really smart, I think, specific ban choices coming out of both of these teams, but does leave open Nike recently buffed, or I should say reworked, but feeling a lot like a buff from a lot of the feedback so far.
Yes, adding a whole lot of damage to her 2, because it did no damage before. I know it added damage, but blah, 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 blah. Making her 3 always a lot faster. I think the strongest part of new Nike's kit is the fact that you can just blink behind someone 180 and start pushing them away from you. I mean, it burns beads instantly.
That's a nasty response, though, from RvL, finding the Horus and the Chronos. So much survivability between those two god choices alone, not even factoring in the team fight potential now that this Horus is going to bring.
Hachiman, the pick there for Coast, we imagine, and Soul probably for 50-meter Fly. He's always liked that Soul pick. Seen a lot of Soul, just 2 picks in the first 2 sets. That seems like a lot, though. We didn't really see much of her beforehand.
A lot of priority being placed already towards some of these double Hunter compositions, even if it's like a pseudo Hunter coming from the mage classes featuring Chronos and Soul. I think that I would still probably have to prefer RvL's current 3 as opposed to Dobbos. It just feels a little bit more pressure preference as far as RvL's concerned.
Sure, but don't forget, Nike these days, that 2, it doesn't just push back and collapse for damage, it also absorbs all those auto attacks that are coming in. So you pick it against Chronos Anhur, you might be able to get that extra value out of that big shield, but that remains to be seen. RvL definitely took notes when they were here at the Midseason Invitational. That is a Renegades comp through and through. I mean, that's the 3 picks that Renegades prioritized basically all tournament long.
I would not be surprised to see that Anhur wind up in the mid lane either, and Chronos off to the side lane where you can get a little bit more of that solo-based farm, because I would probably have to expect that Rival's going to be looking to toss that support over into solo.
Yes, I imagine that Horus is going to be in that support role. And now a set selection, this likely for the jungle, or could still be in the solo lane. I think Set is honestly at his strongest in a laning phase, where he can really use that poke that Skewer provides to its fullest extent.
But the Awilix in response does seem a little bit awkward here, looking to take heavy focus, I'd imagine, onto this Anhur. If he is in the mid lane, I'll be where he's most susceptible to getting ganked time and time again off of the Awilix. And Chulainn with a knockup in tow, definitely going to provide some backup there.
Nike also with that knockup from the Valiant Leap, so don't forget that. You got plenty of setup for this Awilix selection. I love it, but it does mean 4 physical here for Dobbos Disciples. Is that a concern?
A little bit, especially when Rival had that Guan the Tallow Assault to also help shred through some of those protections. And you mentioned wanting to see this set in a possible side lane. Well, I think that might just be the case here, Aggro.
Good, could be Guan Yu jungle. That's right. We saw a ton of that at MSI as well. Rival kind of bringing that MSI flavor back to Phase 2 potentially. We'll see if that's what it turns out to be. It's Game 1 ready to go with Finch and Anatoly.
Thank you, Aggro. Thanks, Taco. And in to the Xbox EU we go. Dobbos Disciples up against Team Rival, a classic rivalry that they've now established amongst themselves. Though it does appear that we don't have Fly here with the squad at this point, so that could be a bit of a different look for them. Also looks like there might be some differences over there for Rival as well. They still have Davey, but looks like not Dobson there in the middle lane.
That's right. Without that, it's going to be no compromise, but needing to have some sort of compensation for the lack of their former mid laner. So a little bit of a disadvantage to both teams, but nothing really out of the ordinary, where both teams are kind of on equal footing, right? Like neither of them having their mid laner. It's time to get creative a little bit without their mid laners, and on top of that, all these new mid-season changes.
That is true. There's a lot of stuff that's different here in the mid-season as well. Hopefully we'll have some time to try and run through all of that. I do think that Dobbos miss a little bit more by losing Fly than Rival do by missing Dobson, so maybe it hurts them a little bit more. But as you said, both teams perhaps making some adjustments. As level 2 already now for Team Rival on this right-hand side, Sprint comes out, but that should put an end to any aggression, not going to be able to find a kill.
Dobbos had the mentality of looking for the invade just a hair too late to the party.
Meanwhile, over on duo side, we found First Blood. ColossxI takes down Davey all the way on the long side of the map, and that's because things are a bit split up here. Rapio is with Predators over here on the right-hand side, but it's USB and Switch that are working together to support in solo. Difference is where those junglers were.
Just as I was about to talk about the solo lane action around the blue buff, instant dual lane pressure, and I love this idea because you want to get off to a great start in a meta where all the hunters are being left alone. You get one of those hunters a little bit of a push, or you shut the other one down, especially a Chronos that needs to get to the late game to make his passive a little bit better. Goes a long way. Dobbos Disciples shutting down Davey.
And it just makes life so much easier for ColossxI because he knows where Rapio is on the map. Now, I admit, DineOhSaw is still plenty of potent presence on this Horus in the early game. It's where he's best. But I mean, I know we don't gank duo much anymore, but if you know ColossxI's nowhere to be found, I think you, or not ColossxI, but Rapio, I think you might as well. Go for the gank.
Especially the timing was around, what, that 1.5 minute mark?
Early,
There's still plenty of time for ColossxI to be literally anywhere on the map because it's 45 seconds until the speed buff respawns anyway, so you have to respect that potential threat, and that's kind of the lull sense of security that a lot of these hunters tend to be in these days because of the absence of not only the supports, but sometimes the junglers included.
Yeah, you're right. It's maybe gotten a little bit too lackadaisical over there. Make sure they're keeping their wits about them as DineOhSaw takes half HP, but ColossxI drops the chase. You mentioned totally that this is our first few games, you know, into this midseason update, and there is a ton different. A lot changed from mage ADCs. We'll have to see how Davey adjusts to that. Nike has had a lot change with her, the passive and that second ability reworked essentially at this point, so she'll be playing very differently. Nate's got to deal with the differences for those mage ADCs too. And, of course, that new Arthurian tree, right, has been a big subject of how much are those items going to be picked up. I guess, where do you have your eye with all these changes that are coming in, especially in this match in particular?
I think in this matchup, it's going to come down to what Switch can do with the shield. If he's going to use that to try to push people around, or if he's going to do that just to intercept some of the basic attacks out of Davey more towards that late game. And that could be a good factor to kind of push Rapio around on the set, but ColossxI going for round 2.
Davey does get the rewind off in time, leaves him right there in place, but that's all the burst. Couldn't have come closer either. Davey just barely surviving. And ColossxI, man, I guess he hasn't gotten the memo, or maybe he wants to flip the script, but it has been 2 early dual lane ganks.
And it's been consistently like right before his speed buff has respawned, about 45 to 60 seconds before it's due to respawn. So that could be something that you can kind of identify throughout the course of a game. It's like, all right, how does this jungler play? Not only for the middle of this game, but maybe for game number 2. And on top of that, Davey surviving, surprisingly, without his beads. It was still on cooldown for another 11 seconds. Huge shout out to that.
That's right. Fortunately, just barely able to make it out of there. This is another one, though, that I want to talk about. Chulainn being picked up in the solo lane. And we really don't see him much anymore.
That's true.
And I think... what do you think, Totally? Why do we see less of him? I feel like it's like he doesn't do quite as much as a lot of other our solo laners, but I think USB can certainly still make this pick work. He's still potent.
He definitely is. We saw it in the last set, I believe, how much of a factor that Chulainn was. So I think OP USB, whether he's in the jungle or in the solo lane, doesn't really matter. He wants to have a playmaking opportunity, God, and Chulainn can do that. Not necessarily before level 12 without the blink, but once that's available, he's going to be in the back line, knocking up multiple people, but it's on such a short cooldown.
Davey's been under constant pressure from ColossxI, and that was a sick knock-up into the ultimate. Of course he finds the kill. 2 up, and that's 2 deaths now for Davey. Dobbos might want to keep moving into the jungle, but his switch will pay the price. Compromise grabs that kill. It's 1 for 1.
But it's a hunter for a support, heavily favoring out Dobbos' disciples, and it's never a good feeling when you're dying on your own side of the jungle, even between the purple and the red buff.
Wow, Guan Yu's gone for this Blackthorn Hammer early, and overpowered USB is in a lot of trouble. He ends up falling to Predators. The solo kill happening in the solo lane. And I was going to ask you about this too. I feel like so often we see Glad Shield rushed for these solo laners, but I guess Guan Yu doesn't use either one particularly well. Maybe that's why you rushed this Blackthorn. I think it helped.
Yeah, getting the health and the mana is a big factor, as Switch is going to force to disengage, give up his own blue buff, and OP USB didn't have his ultimate earlier on. He used that, I believe, either for poke or just to clear the wave. And on top of that, he used his Salmon Leap to clear the wave. He wasn't able to disengage from the cavalry charge.
Made him a bit of a sitting duck as Compromise avoids getting hit by the ultimate there from Nate. ColossxI didn't have the ultimate anyway, so even if he had been knocked up, Compromise would have been A-okay, but there have been some sparks flying already throughout this early game. USB is going to need some help now, down 2 levels to Predators. That could be a problem. We saw Guan Yu's early impact at the MSI in the jungle role. It can certainly still be there at a solo.
And this is not normally the playstyle coming out of Predators, as he is going to actually use that ultimate just for poke onto OP USB on that right side of the map. But he's more patient now, is the Guan Yu onto Predators. He normally loves to dive.
Yes.
He's normally playing the Hercules, putting himself really out of position. But Guan Yu is kind of a reversal style where you're more waiting for the opponent to make a first move.
ColossxI in trouble this time. Compromise finds the kill, so they finally make the enemy jungler pay a bit. DineOhSaw even tops him up just a little bit with that heal. So nice job of making sure they didn't have too much trouble there in that middle lane. Totally, but this is an old matchup. These are definitely rivals, not just in that they're top teams here in EU, but that they used to be on each other's teams. Coast used to be a member of Rival and eventually left that team. They picked up Davey and Dobson, you know, who I assume is the one they want to be running with there in the middle lane to kind of pick up some of that slack. So it's more than just top teams. These are teams that really want to beat each other.
And normally, whenever that happens, there's a lot of strategies that you can kind of pinpoint of this player now knows exactly what Team Rival is going to do. But the problem there is that enough time has passed since the departure of Vapor's Coast that the meta has shifted.
Right.
Everything that Rival did in the past has switched nowadays, so Vapor's Coast doesn't really have that advantage. If anything, it's just a grudge match.
Predators goes into the ultimate for the immediate stun onto Switch. Does not have Sentinel as Zeus, so that means he doesn't have that nice big health shield. In comes Rapio on the set, and this is the kind of fight Set loves. We're getting close and do tons of damage, but still no blood's been claimed. It's actually Rapio who falls first. USB squeaks his way out of there. Predators looks like he wants a little bit more, but underneath the tier 1, I think Dobbos have made it out.
They do at least strip away the blue buff despite losing out a player. Nate thanking his lucky stars with his tail between his legs, escaping under that tier 1 tower. But The power of Rapio set, despite all that damage he did early, wasn't able to clean up. He was only sitting at the tier 1 version of that Blackthorn's Hammer during the fight, just now completing it after the revival. So the next fight is going to be a better power spike play for that. And on top of that, he needs more penetration for him to be super effective, to get off that damage and really utilize that Kingslayer ultimate that gives him all the lifesteal. His only real form of surviving the fight and the damage mitigation from his 3.
Unfortunately, like you said, the timing just was not there for Rapio, and Dobbos win the fight, but aren't able to defend that blue buff. Compromize is running the Anhur, though, in the middle lane. A bit of a shout-out to Dardes, as Switch might now be in trouble. DineOhSaw working together with Compromise deletes him. This Nike support so far has left a bit to be desired.
Switch did not even get an opportunity to play the game there, Finn.
No.
She was in the middle of his leaping animation, but that Valiant Leap takes a little bit of a casting time to get off the ground, and between the pin to the wall, the knock-up as well, and only being level 6, a very easy kill.
Davey, yet again, there's some pressure by Colossal. They're trying to force him into the ultimate, but good patience. The initial knock-up attempt from Colossal missed. I think that cut a lot of their potential in half.
And I think that it did connect. It just didn't actually find the knock-up, the right angle to apply that CC. And as a result, Davey walks away with his life, walks away without even having to use the beats.
That's not a bad trade for him, but USB might be in trouble again. He's really close to the tower line this time, has the ultimate, so he should be okay and does time it well. He just gives up half his HP for his ultimate.
Now, the thing is, OPUSB, he was definitely safe without having to use that ultimate, but the idea there was to get the CC immunity so that he wasn't going to get stunned, and it disrupts the flow that Predators was going to do afterwards, which was using that Telo Assault. So he kind of saves himself about another 20 to 25% health by expending that ultimate.
RvL, though, do have a bit of a lead, about 1,000 gold to their name. They were posturing near the gold tree, but they give up on that. The experience is even more, 2,400 in RvL's favor. And that could be a bit of trouble now for Predators, as there's 2 members here. But so far he's held strong, and he does have reinforcements coming in the form of the rest of Team RvL. But at this point, Dobbos are backing off.
Predators are just laughing, honestly. Like, what are you doing here? Clearly not fazed whatsoever by the presence of Colossal. With all the pressure on the dual lane, he's kind of trying to figure out if it's worth contesting the aggressive Predators. But this is a good timing to do it, knowing that Predators doesn't have physical defense yet. So better now than never.
And I was going to say, you know, we talk about Pride win so often. It's been a popular item, right, since mid-season has landed. But when you go like Blackthorns to start, you're not really setting up for Pride win much there. It so much relies on having other protections having been built. So that tells you if he does want it for Guan Yu, it'll probably be a good bit later on when he finally buys it.
And normally it's a better item to get 5th or 6th anyway, considering that you're getting a shield based on your protection. So if you're building it as your only protection item, you're only getting a total of 80 health shield. So it's not really worth to get it early, in my opinion, unless you really want the cooldown reduction. But if that's the case, then there are a lot more enticing options. Breastplate of Valor comes to mind, Shield of Regrowth, Blackthorn's Hammer.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can get on that solo side in that same role. So their cup runneth over with great options. That's not the only one, though, that's popular coming into it. I can't wait till we see some sick Staff of Mirrodin plays with the second ability, essentially, to get. That one can be picked up by, I think, Guardians and Mages. So after you cast your ultimate, you get a second cast, your next ability cast. So a lot of cool stuff that could potentially be happening. Double Stellar Burst, double stun from Davey. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. Fail not for some of these physical hunters. I think we saw Amuz and Cobb picking it up earlier and getting some value. So there's a lot out there.
I definitely want to see Guardians picking up that Staff of Mirrodin. Like thinking about double taunts, double freezes, double plucks.
Something to maybe try and help you lock down the USB, who manages to avoid the CC chain for now. Now looking to try and defend the blue buff, and actually does manage to get his way back in there and done some decent damage. But Horus has made his way out. They knew the gank was on the way. That's a good use of that ultimate. I like seeing it there.
Colossal trying to make an opportunity happen with using the blink, but a little bit too late to the party. So blue buff saved. OPUSB recognizing that with his transformation, he gets a little bit of a shield bonus. He had that risk calculated to be able to go in 1v3.
There was a lot of action to get things started, but the kill potential appears to have decreased as Predators drops the ultimate there on the right-hand side. It's Dobbos with a big grouping here on the left. USB's taking quite a bit of damage, but he's back under the tower. Should be okay now. It's all about the red buff, and Dobbos look for the invade, but they've been caught in the choke point. Colossal and Switch, both too low, drop to Compromise.
Absolutely eliminated there. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, as RvL have prepared themselves this time for that red buff invade and are about to get rewarded with a Gold Fury.
It just felt a bit forced, Toli, and now Gold Fury goes down for free to Team RvL, earned on the back of that last engagement, and that pushes the gold lead out to a decent spot, about 3,000 in RvL's favor now, and they can use that to try and push even further out in front. 4,500 in the experience department too.
Dobbos Disciples were too readable, I think, in that instance, and on top of this, there was no real way to disengage once they committed. It's such a narrow pathway. Great positioning from DineOhSaw for the double knock-up. Compromise playing this on her mid, which has been seeing more limelight as of recent, has got a perfect angle for that Desert Fury right between that corridor. It's so easy to land all those spears, and with some of the buffs to the Anhur Obelisk, it makes it even more obnoxious to try to fight over that red buff.
That's right. He's had a great placement of those pillars so far, has Compromise, and that's really helped out with this team. 4-0-1. So if this is a sub, if this is who they're going with, either way, he's looking good for them so far right now for Team RvL as they go to yet again strip away the blue buff. But the knock-up into the pull from Colossal gets the fight started on a good foot. At least for Dobbos, they have Predators low, but it's not enough. Colossus to jump, but the spears over the wall means another kill for Compromise.
An interesting target trying to pull somebody. Did not want Predators, I think, at the end of the day. Not a level 15 Guan Yu, no thank you, but he got what he wanted, and that was going to be a death now, as Predators is still going to take a little bit of damage, but nothing to really worry about while his team is getting the better objective.
They're happy with this one. Pyromancer, and remember they got the last Gold Fury. They've been repeatedly stealing blue buffs, have grabbed the tier 1 in solo, and now Nate's in trouble. Can't find the Impale, but now that he's in Disapparate, they can just chase him down. Obelisk to slow, and he gets deleted. Compromise gets yet another kill. How about another double for the Anhur?
Wow.
7-0-1.
What a play so far coming out of him. Not the top of the player damage charts. That one belongs straight to Predators still, and he's going to regroup in the mid lane, trying to push this tier 1 mid tower into even the tier 2. This Guan Yu healing is going to be very helpful with that 30% CDR.
Predators blinks over the wall. He goes right into the ultimate to stun out Coast early. That forces his beads, uses the dash to reposition, and gets off the heel. Mounted Archery is not enough damage. Coast finally claims the life of Predators, has to use Aegis to avoid the damage and makes it out. But the tier 2 tower still went down.
At 16 minutes, it goes down. Almost a world record, honestly. Colossal trying to go even a little bit further and punish RvL for their transgressions. Another triple for Vaporish.
Well, the Quadra might be out of reach now as Davey has retreated using the rewind, but a nice fight there from Coast and from Colossal. A bit too far forward from Predators. Perhaps he did want to make sure they got the tier 2. It just ends up costing him his life, and it might even cost them the Fire Giant on the back of this. It's being started up now by Dobbos.
They need something because there's nothing left for them to do. Gold Fury's down, Pyromancer's down. The tier 1 tower has been already demolished. Going for this tier 2. Rapio needs to be the savior for RvL to stop this.
Davey's nearby as well. This is so risky, Toli, for Dobbos. They don't have that good of confirm, but they grab the objective at the very least, and now Rapio has to blink his way out. Not the same for Davey. Nate claims his life, and just like that, Dobbos might be back in this one, Toli. They got the FG.
Patience is a virtue, Finch, and Dobbos Disciples are claiming every last crumb of it as they're able to secure that big boy objective. Now with 4 or 5 towers left to destroy afterwards, this is a good window for them to get back into this game.
It's absolutely huge. Coast had a good fight there. Of course, he's the one that got the flashy triple, but I want to give a lot of credit to Colossal, too. He's the one that got that pull that set up for the double part of what would eventually be the triple kill for him. That was so critical there, and again, like I said, Predators might have been too far forward, but Dobbos, I mean, now they're only down 3K, and they could potentially even push at this point. What a big swing.
Whoever made that call to chase and go past the tier 2 tower, MVP call there. Colossal jumping in, everyone else having the confidence in their jungler to follow up. Whether or not it was going to backfire, you could tell that everyone was on the same page, and it worked out very well for them. A 17-minute Fire Giant for Dobbos Disciples. They're in the driver's seat.
And mostly it's just USB and Switch, the front line for Dobbos that are struggling. If that front line can do enough, or if they can be in a situation where they're just getting to do some free damage, they can definitely hold on, because everyone else is closer. Even Coast is a bit ahead So this game not entirely out of reach, though. It looks like Dobbos have given up on the tier 1. RvL are chasing them out entirely. A big pull, though. They bring in DineOhSaw, and that's an early kill into the Horus. And now it's Switch's turn to come in. Sentinel Zeus gets the slow on everyone. Davey gets off the rewind, but Dobbos are not done.
Frenzy being used. Davey between a rock and a hard place as Rapio takes out the opposite end of the jungler. Predator is going to zone and disengage the rest of the teammates out of Dobbos. So still a 1-for-1 outside of the tier 1 tower, surprisingly enough, as Dobbos still has plenty of sustain with the Fire Giant to continue.
It was support for jungler, but I think it's RvL with the lower health bars. They can't stick around, especially Rapio, excuse me, and Compromise. And because of that, Dobbos will still get the tier 1 and the tier 2 tower. They've absolutely turned this into worth for them. Now, if they only get that, RvL can still feel okay.
Sure. But
somehow getting that tier 2 after that fight is still pretty good.
Absolutely was. I like the synergy that Dobbos had where they disengaged together, and then yet again you could tell that they just did a hard 180. The soul ultimate from Nate triggered ColossxI's Awilix ultimate right on top of DineOhSaw that got very frisky, trying to go into the thick of things. As he should. I think the call from RvL was also correct at the same time, where you're trying to utilize your advantage of the solo lane. Predators was level 17, OPUSB only level 15 at the time. The longer team fight lasts, the more effective it's going to be for RvL with the sustain.
That's right. They've got a ton of it. The Guan and the Horus keeps them topped off due to potential rewind from Chronos. So Dobbos probably want to end things sooner rather than longer here in these next few engagements. But they're on even footing, man. They absolutely can come out now and fight around the FG. They might even want to fight here in right lane as Rapio avoids being knocked up and falls back to the tier 1. I mean, they still got the Fire Giant buff for 40 seconds. They can grab at least this tier 1.
Plenty of timing. They also have the Hachiman Heavenly Banner for this attack speed between Vapor's Coast and Nate. They're going to melt all these towers, and even with only 30 seconds remaining, that's plenty of time with a wave right beside them.
Now they do want to try and push into the tier 2, but this seems soft. All of RvL are here for the defense, so yes, Dobbos won't stick around that much. But Horus ultimate, I think they want to try and get this fight started. Now all of a sudden, RvL have shown up from the wings. DineOhSaw's brought down low right away, but who's going to help Nate way in the back line? He gets peeled off. Coast turns around. USB gets DineOhSaw. Rapio's quite low, but the turnaround damage from Set is strong. Nate gets one at least, but there's blood all over the place.
Well, Predators gets one, but he gets taken out in return. It's been a 4-for-2 at the end of the day, looking for the D side right on top of Davey, but he's just a little bit too agile.
He is able to move his way back underneath the tier 2, gets knocked up and finds ColossxI.
No way.
They're just too low for the turnaround. Now Davey keep pushing, stun, and the damage, a double. Davey finds 2 more and stops RvL dead in their tracks.
What should have been a 4-for-2 after the dust has settled has become an even-Steven exchange at the 21-minute mark. Finch.
Wow.
A little wild encounter there where there was a fight on 3 different fronts between where the tier 1 tower used to stand, halfway through the lane, and between the Totem of Ku and the blue buff.
That's right. That fight was all over the place, and I love the idea from DineOhSaw. He immediately goes into that Horus ultimate. They want to try and re-engage, but Nate's on it. That supernova he dropped, I think, is why the fight got so broken up. He kind of dissected it.
It did. And the call there was calculated because they did see the rotation of ColossxI going towards the Pyromancer, so they knew that even if ColossxI would rejoin the fight, even with Blink, that they had about a 5 to 10 second window to at least find an early pickoff, but that damage from the soul this late in the game is to be respected.
Well, Dobbos aren't set up. They don't have wards. They're not all here. This is a great time for RvL to try and force the fight. The Fire Giant's already low, and RvL secure the objective. But what about the fight on the back end? In comes Rapio looking for Nate. He made it into the Disapparate form and survives, but there's still 5 members of RvL here strong. Davey bears down on the Vaporous Coast, turns around for USB as well, and lockdown. Rapio gets another easy kill. That's 2-0 for RvL.
And this is where the sustain is going to really put RvL on top of Dobbos Disciples. Not only the Fire Giant Finch, but also the Guan out of combat with 40% cooldown reduction and a lot of MP5 to boot. Predators is going to be that boot that they need to kick down the door.
Yeah, things are about to get a bit scary for Dobbos. Frenzy now popped by DineOhSaw, and the right side Phoenix, a distant memory. And if RvL do close this game out, which it looks like they're going to wait on, I got to put a lot of this on Davey, man. This should be Dobbos pushing. Dobbos is Fire Giant.
Yes.
With the way they won that fight. It should have been a 4-4-2, but instead he got that double kill at the end. That's the only reason we're even in this timeline.
I agree. RvL wanting to get a little bit too, or sorry, Dobbos was a little bit too aggressive on that tier 2 tower. They should have pulled it sit back, realizing what the better picture was at the end of the day. That Chronos, honestly, if he wanted to, he could have just walked all the way to the Phoenix and nothing, there was no chase potential from Dobbos.
I agree.
But I like how Davey was actually 180ing, baiting himself out there, realizing that he had kill potential, putting himself out there like a juicy piece of meat, and Dobbos took the bite.
And for what it's worth, I think Switch has played a bit too aggressive all game long. I mean, he's 0-5-4 on this Nike. I don't think it's quite worked for them. There's been some fights where he's gotten some big ults, but for the most part, he's been kind of a sitting duck. I don't know if maybe that's something they need to adjust, or if the rest of the team needs to be there with him, but totally, how have you seen Switch so far?
Well, as a support, you want to put yourself in the front line, right? It's either that or your solo laner, and considering that OPUSB is playing the Chulainn, I think that the Nike is a good way to bait yourself with that Sentinel of Zeus, providing you such a health shield, but after that, you don't really have much, and I think that he's just been locked down throughout this whole game. When he goes in, he gets knocked up into an impale and gets taken out very quickly.
Tier 2 tower goes down as Doug points out Contagion, the new Anihil item picked up by USB. They give it a lot like Pestilence, except it's physical defense this time. Basically the same function.
It's a good item for 2,050 gold. You're getting all these stats between the health mana and MP5. If you're not really investing into the Breastplate of Valor, this is another good pickup. And then for Chulainn, you're converting all that mana, all that MP5 into health and HP5.
Yeah, that item works really well for Chulainn. I wonder if that's part of why he's being picked up a little bit more, is because Contagion has some good synergy with him. Runic Shield rounds it out for him. Not too many, though, of our Arthurian items from what I've been able to see so far. It looks like none have been picked up, actually. The ones that focus so much around the ultimate. We talked about how good they were, but no one's grabbed them. To be fair, though, I do think they have a great place as late-game items, even potentially as items you sell your boots for. So just because they haven't been grabbed now doesn't mean they won't be later.
Davey with Staff of Myrmidon would be actually really fun to watch.
Oh,
to see like a double time stop.
I think that has a lot of potential, yeah.
Or even
coming out of the rewind with that.
Oh, that would be really spicy to see, but this is a good timing now to look for the left side Phoenix.
DineOhSaw gets pulled in, Supernova comes through, but Rapio deletes him on the back end. Compromise finds USB as well, and just like that, two are down. In comes Horus from DineOhSaw, and they have been cleared out of the left side Phoenix. Team Rival might be ready to close this game out right here, right now.
Only at 26 minutes, Finch, and it's Predators leading the charge with his cavalry. Titan already down.
Titan is gone. Rival grabbed game number 1 here up against Dobbos Disciples, but I wanted to be said that was not an easy game for them by any means. In fact, I think that there was a chance Dobbos could have been in the driver's seat, but they let it slip away from them. That play from Davey was huge.
Oh, it absolutely was, under that tier 2 tower, but Predators gaining an early advantage in the laning phase, transitioning into some blue buff contestments. I think that this Guan Yu was a big factor towards the later portion.
You're right, man. Predators kind of gave USB the hands in that laning matchup. I mean, and this started with Dobbos actually having a pretty good early game. Colossal ganked duo twice, or more than that, and was able to actually keep Davey a bit behind. It just, in the end, wasn't enough to match the lead that Predators had over USB.
What also started the trickle-down effect was when Dobbos Disciples wanted to fight over that red buff, and everyone from Rival was prepared for it. You can see Compromise was there with his support, the Horus knock-up into the Desert Fury. That early into the game where there's no protections really going on, that Anhur is getting full value from that ult.
That's a great point. We absolutely owe it to No Compromise to point out what an impressive game he had on that Anhur mid for them. Dardet showed the blueprint, and my man Compromise just kind of walked down that same path. Looked really good for them here today. But, I mean, this is still one that I think that Dobbos can bounce back from. They're used to playing up against this team. It's not too bad a loss. They can absolutely, I think, still look pretty strong in this next game.
Yeah, I think that going into game number 2, a lot of shifting towards picks and bans, but I think that you can't really count out Dobbos just from that one game.
No, you clearly saw the Vaporish Coast effect. When things look bad, comes in, gets a triple, turns things around for this team. We'll see how it goes, though, in that next game. We're going to have a quick break and be right back.
The SMITE Console League brought to you by Titan Forge, High Res Studios, INAP, Respawn, SteelSeries, Alienware, Skillshot.
Welcome back, everybody. An impressive Game 1 victory there for Team RvL, and where both mid laners are missing on the way in. No Compromise able to make, I think, a much better showing in the mid lane for RvL than the opposition.
It just didn't really seem like a very steady matchup there for Dobbos Disciples up in the mid lane. Just too much pressure early on as well. Being heavily assisted from Rapio, might I add. And a really strong showing all in all, I think, for RvL to kind of get their day started.
Now, to be fair to Dobbos Disciples, they fell behind pretty significantly early on and were still able to make a really pretty solid defense and have one fight that it looked like they were going to win it all, but ultimately RvL still is able to bring it home. We'll see if Dobbos Disciples can do a little bit better here in game number 2 as we're ready for picks and bans. I don't know that it was a picks and bans issue though, Taco. I mean, yes, RvL basically ran the Renegades comp, and that's been proven to do very well when a team plays it to its fullest potential, but I don't know. I think the Dobbos Disciples still had chances to win that game.
RvL had enough of their own flair for my take that I think that it kind of just threw Dobbos Disciples for a spin. That set as well, I think, causing a lot of confusion for Dobbo in terms of their front line trying to gauge between peeling or actually looking for the initiation. It just never really felt like Dobbos Disciples was all on the same page at the same time, aside from that couple of good defenses there.
Yeah, I think that the Predators as well, on that Guan Yu in particular, able to solo USB, basically keep him down the majority of the laning phase, and then you join the fights as a fed Guan Yu instead of a little bit behind Chulainn. You're in a pretty good spot, so I wouldn't be surprised to see RvL try and prioritize that Guan Yu yet again. But RvL themselves end up banning away the Isis. A little bit of a surprise there, I suppose, but I don't know. I think Isis might be the best character in the game right now.
Might not be on Compromise's priority list of gods, though, for that mid lane. So RvL may be wanting to leave their mid laner with a more of a comfort pick choice suited for him. But the immediate Guan Yu pickup does have a lot of flexibility within its own rights.
That's true. Can still go into the jungle like we thought it was going to in game 1, and can still play support if you want. Though Contagion, I think that we could see for the Osiris here, if it is the Osiris Guan Yu matchup, does end up being relevant in your laning phase.
It could make things a little bit more complicated, at least for the Guan, in terms of that self-sustain is concerned, but seeing that Anhur pick up immediately after the fact, hard to believe that this wouldn't wind up in the hands of Vapor's Coast, simply because of the fact that it's a really aggressive pick, would allow Vapor's to look for some of those early boxing opportunities. We saw a couple instances as well, I think, from Davey, where he wanted to get a softly aggressive there, but recognized that Dobbos kept having their jungler sent over to try and gank the lane.
Pretty consistently for him. The Morrigan locked in here for Dobbos Disciples right before the second banning phase. I said wow because Freya has been the pick for the majority of phase 1, but got a very substantial nerf alongside her items getting nerfed at the same time. I'm a little bit surprised that we see her here, Taco. Are you?
Good old double whammy doesn't seem to really deter Davey all that much, and might not even necessarily be for Davey. There is a small chance that I think this Freya could wind up in the mid lane, although I would probably prefer it over in duo. And she might have lost some of her pressure, but she's just not as guaranteed, I think, for the boxing anymore. I think she can still be a really strong pickup option.
Sure. Yeah, still has her spots if you want that duo lane pressure. It's just not as guaranteed pressure as it used to be, as you mentioned. Terra, the pick for Dobbos Disciples, kind of add on to their team fight. And I think really, for more than anything else, you needed a good transformation target for the Morrigan, and now you have it. Terra is probably the premier Morrigan transform in the meta these days.
But I do kind of struggle with seeing the fluidity of Dobbo's composition, because it's going to come down to execution. And if there's one thing in game 1 that Dobbos Disciples was definitely lacking, it was that early to mid-game execution within their own draft that honestly led to RvL just outperforming them.
So King Arthur, Agni round out the draft here for RvL, so it looks like it will be Guan Yu in the jungle. And so that Anhur and Morrigan already on high alert, I would say, to running away from that ultimate. As Serqet locked in, again, more to try and shut down this healing. Horus, King Arthur, Guan Yu, all characters that really rely on some form of sustain one way or the other.
There's just a lot of AoE fighting capability here for RvL in comparison to Dobbos.
RvL trying to take it 2-0 up against their rivals in their region. Let's throw it over to Finch and Tolly for the game.
Good work there, Aggro, up against their rivals in the... Good work! That's good stuff there from Aggro. Wow, man. He really is one of the best that we have here. Finch and Tolly on the call as we absolutely do move into game number 2. And RvL close out in 25 minutes, Tolly, but we would not call it an easy one for them. How do you feel about these two drafts here?
A little bit more solid in the form of Vapor's Coast, playing something that's going to find kills if he has an advantage on the Morrigan. Whereas last time, not to say that he's a passive player, but he didn't have an all-star performance. Outside that one triple kill from the defense from the Tier 2 tower, that's all we really saw from Vapor's Coast. Morrigan, much more opportunities than a Hachiman.
I think so too, though she is going to be up against the Freya this time from Davy, which is a lot of pressure in that lane by herself. Tons of kill potential. Morrigan going to be relying, I think, on good ultimates for the most part to try and stay safe there.
And on top of the dual lane change, the mix-up in the mid as well, taking away no compromises on her, sticking it to Nate. We'll see if he has the same success, but he needs the setup. At Switch playing the Terra, plenty of setup there. You got one stun, you got a root as well. ColossxI can come in yet again.
Does go right for Davy to force out the beads early on, but DineOhSaw is here too. That keeps him safe. You mentioned Nate on the Anhur this time. For me, even if Nate's like a bad Anhur, which I doubt, as long as Compromise isn't on it and going 7-0-3, then maybe they've done enough. What a good game one from him to immediately get the Anhur like taken away from him. But Agni is one he can certainly make some plays with too. He shouldn't be in a bad spot.
And I think it was more about what DineOhSaw was doing alongside Compromise was the setup of the Horus, the knockups, right? And I think Agni Horus is just as good as Anhur Horus, so we'll see how those two pan out in game 2.
I think you're right, as Team Rival have elected that they don't really need a hunter at all. We're talking about this Anhur here. If we don't get Anhur, then we don't want one. They got Agni, Freya, and then 3 warriors. This could be trouble, though. Look at this. Dobbos have potentially caught out a couple members. Dash and beads from Compromise allows him to reposition, and now all of a sudden it's Rival flipping the script. That's a 2-man knockup.
Ooh, but Deathbane available for ColossxI just to escape the first blood, thanking his lucky stars there, and just in time, too, with the speed buff respawning.
That ended up working out for them, though. Dobbos, I like that they're looking for these plays early on to try and find some leads to play around Nate on this Anhur and slow down Compromise, which doesn't quite work out for them here in this instance.
If Switch was level 3 on the Terra, that might have been a kill between the Root, because he found a really good stun onto Compromise afterwards. And then he had to just use the dash just for damage. It was like, I hope you guys can follow up and clean up after this, because I ain't got nothing left at level 2.
Dude, that's the life of support, right? You hit some sick setup and you're like, well, you guys got it from here, hopefully. And unfortunately, it just wasn't quite enough for them that time as Dobbos grab their own blue buff. A lot of people there for it, but hey, better to have the blue than not.
It's a good statement. That's a good take, Finn. I like that.
That's right, yeah.
I, too, would like a little bit of cooldown reduction in MP5 when I'm playing in the solo lane.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm starting to think on a binary scale, yes, I would take blue buff. Yeah, I think I would.
Would you take purple buff or blue buff?
I think I'd rather blue buff, yeah. Blue buff's really good.
What about red buff?
In solo lane, I still would want blue unless I'm someone who doesn't need mana that much. Then I want red all the time.
If I'm playing Arthur, I kind of want that red buff, honestly.
Give me red.
Give me red all the time. I'm walking into my dual lane to strip away that red buff and teleporting back to my lane, not to miss out on any farm. You know how there's always that internal battle between hunters and mid laners of getting the red buff?
Yes.
What if a solo laner
threw his
got
hat in the
there?
ring too, right? Also jumped in. Certainly could be some fun. You already talked a little bit about what Coast was hoping for out of this Morrigan in the ADC, right? To maybe give him someone who can make some more plays here for the team. Do you think that is going to be enough, though? Are they going to be missing a more traditional mage presence since it's Nate who's on the Anhur in the middle lane, and Coast can do some magey things, but not like the big AoE like other mages?
It's okay, so they're not going to be missing out on the mage damage, but they're going to be missing out on a different style of a mage where it's not long-range mage artillery shots like an Agni bomb. It's more in your face, trying to get the stun off and then trying to follow up with the ultimate after the fact. And with how aggressive the rest of the composition from Dobbos is, the Osiris, the Serqet, the Terra, they're going to force these fights, and I think that Vaporch is going to be like a battle mage trying to get closer in the thick of things.
Certainly could be it. There's a ton of good targets here, though. He could just turn to ColossxI for more Serqet. That always feels really good. I mean, another Guan Yu, another Agni. There's a ton of great choices for him. So that means Coast has to make sure that he's kind of on point with the right selections at the right time. Obviously, he'll have one pre-selected for if he's like in danger or something like that, but he's got to make sure he's able to switch quickly on the fly if they need him, despite not having fly in these fights.
So Dobbos has one Gatling gun with Nate on the Anhur. They're about to have 2 Gatling guns once Vaporch transforms into the Anhur. Double Desert Furies.
Can't avoid them now, right?
Yeah, like we saw how effective that was last game where RvL defended their own red buff because of Desert Fury, right? Dobbos now has access to 2 of them.
You know, I haven't had a chance yet to play Morrigan with Staff of Mirrodin. How does it work for her? Because it works when the ability goes on cooldown. So I imagine that's at the end of the transformation then is when she would get the proc from it. I haven't played with her with that item yet, so I'm actually not 100% sure.
That would be interesting if, like, whatever you transform into gets
If they
2
got it,
abilities.
oh god. I wonder if that is. I hope it's not, because that sounds scary, but that's very interesting. We'll keep an eye on how Coast plays. If that is the path he elects to go down, and see how it goes. And so far, things have actually been a bit quiet in terms of actions. No kills, very even here in terms of gold, a slight lead for RvL. We saw the same thing in game 1, so not a big surprise.
But it's not as if either team didn't try to go for these kills. We've been
Right.
seeing some of the blink engagements. Colossal on the dual lane tried to go for yet again another level 2 play. The 3-on-2 in mid coming through from Dobbos. That was just a hair too shy onto RvL. Colossal even escaping in that tier 1 mid.
DineOhSaw wants to get things started, but Dobbos knows this was telegraphed, and they're going to be ready for it. Rapio goes right into the ultimate. He's looking for Colossal, but Colossal ambushes away. Rapio responds to the blink. And as you said, Toli, it's not for lack of trying. They're just kind of not able to lock anyone down.
Just not focusing now at the same target because Compromise was the lowest target there, but he escaped south side. Also because of the great pressure that his teammates was applying on the opposite end, so no one could really follow up after that primary engage. If that fight lasted maybe another 3 to 5 seconds, Vaporish Coast was about to really make a statement there as he was approaching by those oracles.
He would love, I think, to be able to come over and have a big fight. But this is where Coast is happy with this lane right now. If they're just kind of both even here in middle, even a slight bit out in front for Coast, that's perfect for this Morrigan. I don't think you pick it in lane necessarily to bully Freya, though there could be some potential. We've seen Hachimans, or we've seen Morrigan into Hachimans in the long lane, and that has worked where Morrigan has had the pressure. So we'll see if Coast can find kill potential.
I think there is a lot of kill potential, honestly, because of the poke range from Dark Omen. Predators, though, might be in a little bit of trouble in a 1v2.
Yes, no backup coming, it looks like, either from where they're positioned on the map.
Okay.
But he doesn't need it in a 2v1. Predators takes down Colossal. USB is going to try and keep this one going and shutting down this healing. The Lord of the Afterlife has already been expended. Predators has backup coming as well, so I think he's out of there winning the 2v1.
Good jukes coming out of Predators. I can't believe he got out of that one, Finch. At the end of the day, the last breath was applied to prevent the Gladiator shield healing, but the damage in response. If OP USB got the minion aggro originally, I think Colossal lives there. I still think Predator survives at the end of the day, but at least it wouldn't have been a failed gank opportunity. But man, what a turnaround play. Predators holding his ground, using that ultimate offensively instead of using it to get closer to his tower.
Colossal finds at least DineOhSaw with the Cobra's Kiss, but that's not enough. The fight's over. I'd love to break down the last fight, but now Coast is being changed, so he just turns into a horse of his own, even finds the turnaround stun to be a little bit cute there underneath the tier 1. That's classic Coast for you, as he makes his way out of there, no problem.
You can really tell that he's comfortable with the Guan Yu as well, because playing a Hunter, you don't have many opportunities to play Guan Yu, but he timed the cancellation of the ultimate in sync with Rapio to get the stun off, and on top of that, dodged the whoop.
Yes.
To cancel the Talu Assault, turn around, dash away to prevent yourself from getting whooped. The mechanics from Vaporish Coast, despite not finding a kill, he could definitely show it off while retreating as well.
Look at Thoth picked up by him now, so clearly he's in this for the long haul. Look at Thoth, not that great of an item right away. But yet again, another gank here on the Predators on the solo side. USB now drops the Lord of the Afterlife onto 2. DineOhSaw is just charging up the ultimate to look for a knockup, but it did not get Predators out of there. Instead, they're going to turn around on the USB and burn him down. Compromise gets the credit.
This time, Dinosaur makes sure that the 1v2 is going to be at least an even 2-for-2, or 2v2 rather, to start things off, and yet again, Colossal couldn't make it happen. The CC coming through from Dinosaur prevented the last breath from coming out a little bit sooner, and that's why the turnaround was just so easy, it feels like, from RvL.
Man, if Lord of the Afterlife and Last Breath are not enough anti-heal to set up for an Arthur gank, then I think it just can't happen. And maybe you gotta stop.
Yeah,
because, I mean, I think they drafted 2 picks who do a pretty good job of killing Arthur. It just isn't enough.
No, they really did, honestly. It's just not really working out in the solo lane, so they need to make something happen in the duo.
Well, Coast almost won this 1v1, but it is not a 1v1 any longer. Now in a lot of trouble. Kill happened elsewhere as well. I believe that was Rapio that grabbed it, and Coast goes down 2 for 0 in favor of RvL.
That was really close from Coast. I think if he uses the beads right as the knockup happens, he gets off the stun upon landing from Davey, because Davey didn't have the purification bead, so he was going to get guaranteed stun into a Dark Omen, so might have been able to trade out his life 1 for 1.
Gold Fury time now for RvL, and this has all the same beats and notes from game number 1. An early lead for RvL, an early Gold Fury. Dobbos can't even make their way in. DineOhSaw zones them out perfectly, and yet again, RvL pull out to an early lead.
They're just winning on all fronts, Finch. It's not just the Gold Fury that they just claimed, or the kills, as they're about to find their fifth one, not going to find it. But also the Totem of Coups. 6-1 advantage there is just stockpiling all the gold into their favor. Predators, whether it's the Guan Yu or the Arthur, he's holding his own in that laning phase, making it a lot easier for the rest of his teammates to breathe.
Wow, Davey still goes into the hastened ring second here for Freya's. We didn't even see Freya's always do this before the item got changed. Now Predators, though, might be in trouble. We'll have to talk about hastening ring later. He's been hit by the last breath, stunned, but Lord of the Afterlife is off the mark. Up into the air, the Predators goes to try and at least get Colossal, but this time it works. Third time's the charm.
Finally, they take down the raid boss and they collect their epic loot after the fact. Rapio will be rewarded with a blue buff during the disappearance from Colossal, so a little bit back into RvL's pocket, but man, Predators just has no fear whatsoever. Like, he'll still use that ultimate offensively. Like, it would have been even worse if OPUSB connects with that Lord of the Afterlife.
Yeah, he managed to outplay them there, but as you said, they finally take down their raid boss. But just like aggro, they did not get their 1,000 voices drop as they expected to. Unfortunate, really. You hate to see when that happens, as now RvL about 3k gold up, can choose where to go. Last time they were able to get the Pyromancer pretty easily off the back of Gold Fury, but it looks like they don't have quite the same amount of pressure here.
Just going to force out a defensive ultimate. Looking for another bomb, a little bit off the mark there from Compromize. Nate a little bit too far out of position. Look at Colossal, though, making this rotation, but he doesn't really have Blink. I think Compromise is A-okay.
I agree. So let's go back and talk about these Hunter builds a bit. Looks like Bumba's already being considered by Coast on his side. But like I said, the hastened ring for Davey here too. Do you like this being picked up early? As every time I bring it up, we don't get to talk. They want to fight. Maybe now you can talk about it.
We'll be fine, Finch. And this is a core item on the Freya, right? Like, there's been a couple of changes to this item. It went from 2,300 gold to 2,700 gold, but also on top of that, the magical power went from 50 to 70. So it's a little more enticing, actually, especially for a Freya that relies on that magical power for not only her basic attacks, but also for that Valkyrie's discretion. To pick it up this early leads me to believe that he was worried about Vapor's Coast playing a little aggressively, which we all should be.
Yes, exactly.
We all should be worrying about that. So it makes a lot of sense there, and he's preparing himself for any mid-game fight, especially once that Demonic Grip is online.
Those are the core items for Freya, so if you are still going to be playing her nowadays, you definitely want them. It does feel a bit more luxury, but Davies found a way to make it fit and still be comfortable here in the lane. Rapio, though, is a little bit less comfortable. He's had to reposition and use his purification beads, but DineOhSaw wants a bit more, cuts off the path with the ultimate, knockup lands onto Switch, but he still has the dash to get out, and it's Rapio who's low.
Taking too much damage, probably more than he bargained for, as Colossal is making that rotation without the last breath. Vapor's Coast in that mid lane. Meanwhile, Predators winning his 1v1, forcing a defensive ultimate, will be rewarded with a tier 1 tower on the right.
And now it's time for Vapor's Coast. Comes through the back. Colossal gets the kill credit off the stun. And you want DineOhSaw here as well. Cobra's Kiss and Last Breath to push him back towards the team, but they can't quite lock him down. So tier 1 still stands, and they only get 1 kill, but Dobbos are not done yet.
They're really not. Predators now making the rotation after winning that matchup on the right side. He wants to extend that into the mid lane, and Nate really needed to connect that impale in order to find the kill onto DineOhSaw. A really smart play coming through from Vapor's Coast, not only to find the initial flank, but the follow-up afterwards to transform into his jungler, to apply even more anti-healing, to reduce the protections. Was a good idea, but needed a little more additional help.
And the tier 1 tower actually goes down in favor of RvL. You see this happen a lot. If a team makes a play, usually the mid tier 1 can be a bit of a response afterwards because they have to back or they'll be low and their ultimates are down. So RvL will make a good call off the play on their own tier 1 to go grab it from Dobbos on the back end.
And with that tier 1 tower down, RvL are just collecting more and more objectives for themselves. They got the earlier Fury. After 15 minutes of action, the Totem of Coup was 8-1 in RvL's favor. Almost a total of 1,000 gold between that advantage, as there's already a 2-level advantage in the Soul Lane. And rest assured, Predators with his teleport just now coming off of cooldown is going to make this rotation for the Fury.
It has certainly spawned the Oni Fury instead, excuse me, as Red Buff spawns at the same time. Coast has now finished the Bumba's Mask, which has become pretty core onto our Morrigan. We see that built in her all of the time. No Gauntlet of Thebes for our supports. I thought that item got buffed. I thought we'd be seeing a lot more of it, but not the case just yet. Is Oni Fury being pulled by RvL?
Porsche goes on the backside, gets spotted out, forced to use the beats. I don't think it's enough to save him.
And tries to hold on to the ult there, and it costs him his life. Davey gets the kill credit. Now in trouble is Nate here in the middle lane. Predators is able to clean him up, no problem. That's 2 for 0 for RvL. And Predators can just keep right on fighting. He's happy to take this. This is the 2v1 he's been doing all game, and this time he's got some backup as RvL get the Oni Fury.
And escaping into safety. Colossal even trying to escape for himself. Rapio needing to be that Horus savior. Compromise looking for the flank with the Agni bomb stunts.
2-man stun. Colossal ends up quite low. That means USB had no backup when he engaged. Switch gets pulled up out of the Agni bomb, but I don't think it's going to hurt them too much. Davey gets the kill anyway, and they've got a ton of heals coming from this Guan. RvL have really started to squeeze Dobbos out of this game, up 7-2 in kills and about 7,000 gold.
And that play that RvL made was so obvious that Dobbos Disciples was ill-prepared. They saw Predators back in the solo lane when there was a wave still there. There's only one play that you make from there. It's like, because you're giving up a wave, there's something more valuable than the wave that he's giving up, and that was the Fury. He goes back to base. Hold that thought, though. DineOhSaw could be in trouble, but Compromise saving him. Predators goes back to base, finishes off Void Shield, teleports to mid, makes the play happen.
DineOhSaw now being pulled back in by his team. Last breath has been expended. He'll need some help. But Davey's already quite low as well, but it's Nate who ends up falling first. The turnaround and the heals coming out from DineOhSaw too. Keep the team alive. Coast at least finds one to make it 1-for-1, but USB has been taken out of the fight. Coast Aegis timer waited out, and DineOhSaw kills him too. So far, RvL's been all over this fight.
A desperation play from Dobbos Disciple, getting heavily punished. They found one, but at what cost? Giving up 3 in return. RvL are all going to back to base to be healthy. I don't think they have an opportunity to go for Fire Giant, but knowing RvL, I don't even think that would be out of the ordinary.
Not at all. This team clearly now in control. I said in game 1, they made a few missteps, and Dobbos able to bring it back close. But so far here in game 2, it's been anything but. This has been much cleaner from RvL. A lot of it I want to give credit to Predators, man. Winning multiple 2v1s in solo, that opens up the map so much for your team.
It definitely has, as also Colossal wasn't successful in his dual lane gank at level 2. Maybe if that gank was successful, then Porsche Coast could look to play aggressive, but as a result, Davey at a very high level. Freya, big threat to worry about, especially once he gets this Fire Giant buff.
But it looks like they want to take the fight instead. They've dropped the FG, and instead they want to lock down Switch. They force out his ultimate, only use on himself. Of course, hits the enemy team too, but it's USB. They just switch targets and blow up the Osiris immediately. Colossal goes in to at least drop last breath, but the control too strong. Davey gets the kill. Colossal can't go in there, and Predators way at the back is 2v1ing again.
And he finds the kill in return. Nothing can be responded to. Porsche Coast wrapping around, maybe thinking about the timing window of when he can penetrate this defense, but man, what a play. RvL getting 3 clean picks and now should be rewarded with his late game objective.
It's all on Coast, and who else would you want it on, right, to try and steal this one away? He doesn't quite know the timing, and they know he's there, so they just go hunt him down on the backside. He does make it into the Guan Yu and is trying to get away with the cavalry charge, but Predators wants to chase on his old hunter. I think Coast should be
No, he's dead. He's dead. The Sundering Strike from max range. Predators diving the tier 2 tower, finding the kill. His teammates getting the Fire Giant buff. All smooth sailing from the rest of the RvL boys.
That's about as bad as that fight can go for Dobbos Disciple. Now it's 14-3. Tier 2 tower and right comes down as well.
And something I wanted to point out was during that Fire Giant, they knew that Vapor's Coast was somewhere, but they didn't know exactly where. So what does DineOhSaw do? He uses to the skies, uses that as a global satellite, looks around, sees Vapor's Coast behind the Fire Giant, and as a result, Compromise is like bomb stun. Guan Yu ultimate on top of it, and then just for the cherry on the top, Predators to shoo him on out.
Great analysis there, Tully. Do you know an item tree that feels real good to build into once your whole team gets out in front? I agree with Doug here. It's the Arthurian one. Pridewind going to be picked up for Predators and Rapio. It looks like Staff of Mirrodin being worked on there for Compromise, and the Tier 1 there for DineOhSaw as well, which means he could probably be going into Pridewind as well, I'd imagine, from that position. So things are about to get a whole lot worse for Dobbos once those all get finished. And this feels like the timing you like a lot more for Pridewind here, right?
Yes, this is the 5th item. We don't really consider the starter item still here.
But not a ton of prots, though.
No, not quite. But this is more about finishing off the 40% cooldown reduction between Glad Shield, Blackthorns, and Pridewind. That's going to be capping him off. What I do want to see from Predators is to eventually sell the Gladiator, or I guess the Warrior's Blessing, and go for like maybe a Hide of Urchin, right?
Right. Those items do feel pretty good together as Coast gives up the push he was doing in solo and rejoins the team. It's left side Phoenix that's under duress, and Coast wants to rush in. He's got Compromise, the early target. It's not enough, though, for the kill. The Tier 1 still barely stands, and Coast has to transform just to get away. That means now left side Phoenix earned by Rival.
No more towers as well, so only Phoenixes to remain as that left side gets stripped away. Predators making life very difficult for his former Hunter player, and no Dobbos disciples in a lot of trouble now.
USB is the target yet again. He's been knocked up. That's a good Earth and Fury, and that sets up Nate to at least get Compromised to try and defend. Coast is still the target. Aegis buys him a time, but he can't vanish enough. He can't find the stun either, and Davey cleans up that kill. And now there might even be turnaround potential as Davey can just use damage from the backline. Switch, the next one that's under fire, does have the dash to reposition, but they've used the Horus ultimate to get right back in the thick of it.
Dobbos too desperate there, Finch. They wanted to take that fight outside the Phoenix, not the play, but you got to do something there because it doesn't look like there's any stopping Rival.
All right, they will slow down here, though. Predators able to find one more on the back end, and they can now reconsider pushing back in. Only 3 members up from Dobbos to try and keep this game alive for him. The Titan brought down to about half HP, and Rival's just not taking enough damage. Look how tanky they are. They can stay on this Titan all day. Davey now in range, putting some damage. Predators is finally low. Lord of the Afterlife not enough, and Rival grab game 2.
The 6-1-8 King Arthur from Predators, I definitely think was the catalyst as to gaining that early to mid-game advantage to just start snowballing it after that.
I mean, just huge from Predators, man. This is the kind of game that when he has, that's when Rival looks this tough. The multiple gank attempts were never going to be enough. Also, shout out to Nate getting the Anhur taken away from him, or excuse me, not Nate, but Compromise, and then still having a really good game on the Agni anyway. That's great from him.
I think a lot of it also came down to DineOhSaw's rotations. He made that 1v2 into a 2v2 to really start shutting down Colossal. What Dobbos did in game number 1 was definitely recognized by Rival in game number 2, adapted to it very well. Davey was not caught off guard on the Freya this time around.
No, not at all. Great play from him too in late game. You finally got to see that Freya come online and absolutely look potent here. That's it. That's a 2-0, man. Game 1 I said was close. Game 2 is anything but. Rival just looked like the dominant team here from me, Tully. But that's going to do it for that set. We still have plenty more console action to be coming your way. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.